You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's delve into our first discussion now. Nigeria's political space is gradually heating up as gladiators gear up for the 2023 general elections. Already, political parties and aspirants are strategizing in ways that would give them the best advantage at the polls. Now, part of this process includes the decision on zoning to choose a party representative for the presidential election. The two main political parties in the country, the governing All Progressives Congress and the opposition People's Democratic Party, as well as leaders in various regions, are engaged in a power rotation tussle over which zone should produce their presidential candidate. Should all of this matter, seeing that Nigerians are more interested in getting a president who is ready to serve in their interest? These are the crux of what we'll be talking about in the next couple of minutes. Joining me in the studio is Professor of Strategy and Development and Center Director, SIAPS, Professor Anthony Killer. It's nice to have you join me this morning.
Good to be here.
You're welcome.
Good to be
Great. And joining me on Zoom is political analyst Adeni Kunu. Ni, good morning. All right, we'll have him as we get along. Now, Professor, let's start here with the issue of zoning. When we talk about zoning in this country, I believe people are so used to it now that nobody needs to go back to the classroom or check the textbook or the dictionaries to know what all of these things are in the context of our politics. But a lot of people still argue up until now that zoning undermines merit.
And they're right. The risk is there. You say we shouldn't go back to the classroom. But I think when we have this conversation, it's good to have a preamble that when we talk in knowledge and in conscience, we should understand that though politicians talk about zoning and people follow them, the fact of the matter is that zoning is an unpleasant peculiarity of the Nigerian political panorama. You know, to the extent that we need it. Why do we need it? Because we don't trust ourselves. Because the Nigerianness itself is a bit weak. So we need to put things in place.
Sorry, the Nigerianness is weak.
Is weak. The Nigerian nation. We don't trust ourselves enough to believe that anybody from anywhere will do the best thing for all of us. So therefore, when we're afraid that one part might perpetuate itself in power, so the other parts are looking for a way to say, okay, let's do it turn by turn, you know, which sounds commonsensical, but it's antithesis to democracy. But I get our need. So in a way, zoning in Nigeria is a situation where the parent or the family of a not very young child decides to put a plastic material on the mattress because the child continues to wet the bed. So it's something that you manage, because normally you don't need to wet the bed at that age. But because you keep wetting the bed, they put the plastic material on it. That's the Nigerian situation with zoning. We don't trust ourselves. We don't believe that quality matters. So we place representation over merit and quality. But that said, but it is true that we have a situation that we have to look at. There is fear. You know, the ideal hope is that one day somebody will come and will show that this thing is not needed, or people will decide so for themselves. Because we have a situation in this country now. I'm sure when we talk of election, we're always thinking presidential. But let's take a situation, for example, say in the Senate, where you have two brilliant senators from the same place, good leadership skill. Because of this zoning issue, two people from the same place cannot become Senate President and Vice Senate President. Automatically, it just looks odd. And that is where the issue lies. So we have to forego merit. So those people who argue about it, but that is the ideal, theoretical, and real thing. You know, but in practical times, people are urging for this. And again, when we're talking knowledge and conscience, we will see that the situations are not the same for the two political parties anyway. But you know, so zoning, I recap, is this unpleasant, peculiarity of the Nigerian political panorama.
All right, but some people would argue, in fact, we often hear people say that democracy or politics is a game of number.
Yes.
And when we're talking about number,
yes,
you are certainly, obviously going to play to a number that will give you advantage.
Yes.
Either to your professional bodies that you belong to, or maybe your ethnic group or religion, whatever the thing is.
Yes.
You know, you play to some of these things, and they play themselves out. So when we have that, it means that there's going to be a majority-minority situation.
Yes.
Now, these are the realities that we find ourselves today. So if we have this, wouldn't you say that in order to give room for, because anybody, any group that forms a majority most likely will remain a majority, except there are alignment and realignment of other minorities and all of to form a majority, as the case may be. Well, so wouldn't that be, in the face of that, wouldn't you say rotation should be a good thing?
Well, it is possible. I just think it's lazy and it's not really a democratic thing. You know, it is possible to say what matters to us most is where the president comes from. So therefore, let us zone and rotate it. You can make that argument. But, you know, if you look at it, though, it's neither advanced nor democratic. You say it's a game of numbers. You're right. You say you get the numbers where you can, either to your professional bodies or your ethnic group. I add for you, or perhaps your religion, and you try to align. Yes, you see, but elsewhere, where democracy came from, what divides people and what makes them align is actually issues. So somebody's going to decide before election, people like you and the rest of the country will ask them, what are you going to do about fuel subsidy? Yeah. Then everybody say, based on fuel subsidy, I'm going to follow Mr. A or Mrs. B. Not based on where it comes from. You look at so even within the people who now say they want to do the same thing, you look at the two of them and you think, I think this chap knows what he's talking about better, regardless of where he's coming from, regardless of his religion or his ethnic affiliation. So I think it must be said that the idea of zoning and rotation is not a business of citizens. It's actually a business of politicians who are looking for a way to get into power. So they are using that political formula of zoning rather than political formula of issues. In other places, in other contexts, the issue is about will you raise tax or will you reduce tax? Are you going to do this road or you do that? So that is the political formula that those politicians use to get into power. The political formula we are being proposed is ethnic, is zoning. So zoning for who? Is it for me or for my students or for the woman selling something on the street? She's not going to go to presidency. It is just the politicians that have this issue of zoning, but they're making all of us believe it, you know, which is their political formula. So I get the sense. So if we talk about justice, equity, and fairness, it is possible to make the case that, oh, you've been there, so let us go there. But the question is, who are the you, who are the we? Is it all of us?
Right.
From the supermarket or the people around the political leaders? That is where the problem goes when we want to delve in it. If we don't want to delve in it, if we just want to use, you know, shortcuts to say, oh, but fairness, they've been there, let's go there, then fair enough. Then you can make a case for rotational thing, but you know.
Well, the point is, to buttress your point in this aspect,
yes.
So someone was saying, okay, let's talk this zoning thing we've been talking about. Put Nigeria on the platter since 1999 up until now.
Yes.
We have been zoning, rotating. The Senate president comes from here, the president comes from there, the vice president comes from here, and so on.
And so on, yeah.
But how better off have we been since 1999 till now?
But I agree that so far we've zoned and we've rotated, you know, north and south. Mind you, in the middle of north and south, there are parts that are saying, no, this rotation has not been for all. And I say immediately, you know, southeast, northeast, they make a case that this rotation you're doing, from 99, we were not part of it, we were excluded in it. So they make a robust case in that way. But overall, I dare anybody to show me the correlation between progress and achievement and zoning and rotation on one side. You know, if we really want to be practical about this, you know, with data at hand, I cannot see that correlation to say, except maybe they are cronies. You know, of course, if you are related to the president and you are his best friend, he will benefit. Maybe those nominated, maybe those who got contracts not because they've been in the industry for merit, but because they were pals. They had access to the person in power because they're from the same place. You know, the rest of us as citizens, we're really left in the cold. I think citizens should have their own idea of what they want and who they think can achieve those things, regardless of where the person comes from. But I also understand, and you're saying this is the thing, I understand the need for some people to say, oh no, let somebody from outside get there. The problem is you ask them, but why? Are you going to get special favors? I think what people don't see is that when they talk about zoning, it actually undermines, it's a catch-22. We're talking about zoning because we don't trust ourselves. That's why the issue of zoning came up. The more we push the issue of zoning, the less we trust ourselves still. Because why am I so interested as somebody from where I come from becomes president? So that I think I'll get some cogent benefit to the detriment of others. Is that what we're saying? Do we think about it? Or is it that when somebody from my side comes from president, I would just start feeling good? So what? Does that pay school fees or put petrol in the car? I think citizens should up the game themselves, because politicians, and it's natural, it's not because politicians are bad. Most politicians are bad, by the way, but it's not because they're bad. It's just that naturally people would like to get more for less. So if they can throw the ethnic religious formula in our face, then they don't do the hard work of showing us that they understand policy. If you want to be president of Nigeria, governor of your state, or make laws for us in the House of Rep or the Senate, you should demonstrate knowledge of law, understanding of economics and business. You should understand that you know how to manage people. And better still, in a country like this, perhaps you should show us that you understand a lot of Nigeria, the place, and a lot of Nigerians, the people. And I think those are the kind of qualities we ought to be looking at. Then after you show us that you understand those things, you should also show us that you're credible because you have the capacity to do those things, perhaps because you've done similar things before, or perhaps because you've taken position on those things. I think as citizens, that is how we ought to be looking at it. Otherwise, if we follow politicians, they're just going to take the easy way, the cheapest way for them. And we should look at this thing the same way we look at our artisans, the same way we look at our hairdressers or our doctors. If you don't insist on wanting the best, they just give you the easiest thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the same mindset. We, as citizens, we need to start looking at politicians as people we want to employ for a role, rather than saviors that are coming from above. I think that's a crucial thing.
How far from this? One would say, of course, we have this ideals in close to ideals in the West, where the systems work and things, they become role models to all of us when it comes to this. But how far from achieving that feat are we as a people?
We're far, because we look at our roads and we look at how stable our lights are, and we look at how many things we export, how many things we import. So the difference is clear in terms of development. The correlation you're looking for is that they actually every 4 years get together to say, I plan to do more roads by increasing VAT or reducing VAT. And some people feel, you know what, I think we should increase VAT. So I'm going to go for Mr. VAT up. Another person said, no, the way to do it is to reduce it. And some people say, you know what, I think we should reduce it. Let's go for Mr. Reducing VAT. Then the numbers speak for themselves. But above all, though, they now all stay within the framework of saying that you can reduce VAT, you can increase it if you like, but there are certain things, and that's where the Constitution comes in, there are certain things you just cannot do. Another point is this: when those people nominate people, once somebody gets in power, when they nominate people or award contracts or give any kind of a recognition to somebody, the people led and echoed by the press show us the profile of that person, and you sort of see why it should be that person in the role. So that way, the issue of where it comes from will not really matter a lot. So if I see Mike, a coach on TV, I won't think, why is it him? Because I know he's a journalist, he's a broadcaster. This is his stuff. It won't really matter. And I think the politicians do Nigerians a disservice, and Nigerians themselves, we do ourselves a big disservice, because when we walk into a hospital, we don't ask where the doctor is from. When we go to the barber, we don't say, what's your middle name?
So, or when we get to the market to buy anything.
Actually, and I say this as a negociation, Actually, when we get to the market, we tend to look for somebody not from outside because it's cheaper. Lagosians know what I'm talking about. But here we go. When it now turns to politics, we now go for this thing. I think it makes politics ridiculous, and it makes Nigerians ourselves appear not serious.
Do you think this has really come to stay? Because the way this thing is, it becomes even more. In fact, the moment we're building up to the next election cycle, these are some of the first questions or first issues that come up or that are thrown up there.
You're right, it is, because that is what politicians are trying to make us do. They want to take a shortcut. Rather than do the hard work, they want to throw something easy. So at the moment, let us use some economic terms. The political panorama is supply-led. I think we should make it demand-led. You say, is it something that would stand forever? It doesn't have to. It could be, but it doesn't have to. Anything that is social, the political discourse is not mountain, or even rivers now can be dredged, or seas can be dredged. It's not a mountain that it is there and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not the time of the day. Since it's social, we can change the discourse. So I was saying supply-led, demand-led. This is a situation where Nigeria now, where the political discussion we're having and the people we're supporting or going against, we're dealing with it the way we do when whilst driving on the road, we see some product and we decide to buy it. That is supply-led. But the way we do that, we go into the supermarket or into the market, is demand-led, because we're going knowing what we want to buy. So my advice to citizens is that, regardless of what politicians are trying to throw at them, they should sit back. We, the citizens, should sit back and look at what really matters to us, and let the process be more demand-led. So we will decide, look, what really matters to me actually is somebody who can do these 3, 5, 7 things. Then I look out, just the same way I go to the market, I know I want to buy food or fabrics or shoes, then I look out for who's selling it. Not for me to just wait and anything they offer, I take it. At the moment, politicians will offer the ethnic, zonal, religious thing, because that is an easy thing. They don't need to prove anything. It's a shortcut for them to get to the table. And I say all these things fully understanding the feeling of let us have it too. But I think even if we say let us have it too, the person that will have it still has to show that they understand law, they have a good business of economics, they understand people, and this is my own personal thing. I really want the next president of Nigeria to be communicative. That they can actually speak to people.
And engage Nigerians.
And show us that they care, they're alive, they are there, they're part of us. They read papers, better still if they even follow Twitter or social media, so that we know that is, personally, that is the kind of...
I feel a lot of Nigerians, that resonates with a lot of Nigerians, especially when you make comparison with, say, maybe the President of the United States or the Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, where on daily basis or every week you get to hear from him about anything, this issue, that issue, comments here and there. It mustn't be a sit down for a long time. It's just a comment about something.
I'm around.
Yeah, I'm around. I'm present, and I'm aware of this and all of that.
Because sometimes what we call small issues is life-changing for some people. It's that important, yes.
Now, what do you make of... there is this federal character principle that's there meant to balance, something close to rotation, something close to that, as a way of giving fairness to everybody. How different is it from this issue?
Yes, I think the federal character issue has been misapplied and it's misunderstood. The federal character issue was created to ensure inclusiveness. And the idea, so one of the areas where it has been misapplied and totally misunderstood is, for example, in education, where in the name of federal character, to admit people in certain institutions, educational institutions, standard has been lowered to say, let people who are not privileged to have the KIMS Active certification. That was a total blunder that was done. Ideally, what should we have done is not to lower the standard, is to give more resources and more education to people so they can catch up. That's the idea. So the federal character principle says by nomination, a board that belongs to Nigeria should have everybody, people from part of Nigeria. That's the idea, is inclusion thing. It's not that if one person is chairman today, the person has to be the other side. That's the rotation, it's different. Again, the federal character thing, it's understandable. I go back to that analogy. We have a not so young child who's still wet in the bed. So we're putting plastic material on the mattress so we don't have to dry it every day. That's we're using rag. We're mending here. I think somehow we need to find a way to solve the fundamental problem, because what is the need for federal character? What is the need for zoning? What is the need for rotation? Is lack of trust. Is the idea that if you're there, I'm out.
Yeah.
And it is because we cannot fully, truly believe that somebody can do what is good for all of us. So maybe we need to go beyond making amends and putting plaster or covering it. Open it up and understand that, okay, you know what? The problem is perhaps because the center is too strong. It's so strong that if you're not there, it's going to be against you or you'll be left out. Maybe we should decentralize. People call it restructuring. Maybe we need to make sure that we have a country where it won't matter who's at the center. What matters is where you are.
And what you're delivering.
And what you're delivering.
All right. We have to leave you here now. Thank you so much, Professor Anthony Killer, for coming on the program this morning.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Great.